Welcome to 4,000 Weeks, the weekly audio dispatch from 4kweeks.com. And me, Spencer, your, curious and continuously amazed host on this journey of learning about how to get the most out of each one of our weeks. And you will notice at this point that I am not, there is no background music. There's no intro music other than the rippling and rushing of the river that I am sitting in the middle of right now. I'm currently sitting under an easy up in a camp chair, pretty much equidistant from each shore. There is water up to the middle of my shins. The chair is just above the surface of the water. And I just dropped off the 11 other human beings, 5 adults and 6 children, a few miles up, and they are currently tubing down to me in this river. And I bet I will get done before they round the bend. But yesterday when I tried this, 10 minutes after I started recording, they were all yelling, hooting and hollering for me. Kind of ruined the recording. But I broke my arm, so I cannot get in the river, can't submerge it, can't really inner tube. But it worked out well because I was able to shuttle them fairly easily. Anyway, that's all intro. It's funny, when I break from routine, I really break from routine. It is week 36 of the year 2025, and in our home in Kansas City, 3 hours to the north, the zinnias are still beautiful, and I can also still smell the roach crap in my nose from when I was a construction laborer in high school and college, demolishing old Section 8 kitchens for $19 an hour. And it was back-breaking work, and I will just never forget the smell when you tear a cabinet off the wall and the entire wall is just covered with roach poop. It is a very, very specific smell. And so, both things are true, that roach crap smells a certain way and zinnias are beautiful. It's weird that both of those things are sensory memories. It's like a buddy of mine says, if you smell something that's really stinky, just imagine it's really expensive cheese. Shift your paradigm. It is strange to think back. It's time for you to walk over to your 4K Weeks poster and fill in another square. Oh, there's a hawk soaring above me right now. Oh, no, actually, that's a turkey vulture. It's a little different vibe. It's time for you to walk over to your 4K Weeks poster and fill in another square. Are you done? Okay, it is, strange to sit here in the river watching this bird circle something. And it's also strange to think back to all of the hard, dangerous, back-breaking work that I did when I was in high school and college. It seems so far away, and yet the lessons are like the myth about myself that I tell to myself and to other people, that how I learned hard work and how my blood, sweat, and tears was poured into becoming this somewhat, in a good way, calloused older man that I've become. But then I wonder, why would I think that what I did back then had more of an impact on who I am than the things I am doing today, right? Aristotle famously quoted as, "We are what we do." And, if we are what we do, then excellence is a habit. And I think it's stupid to think that the man I was way back then set the, unalterable course for the man I am today. It's myth building. We are what we do. Do awesome things. Do awesome things today and be awesomer tomorrow. Week 35 of the year 1961, Surgeon Archibald McIndoe established the Center for Plastic... Well, it's French, so center is spelled century. Center for Plastic and Jaw Surgery at Queen Victoria Hospital. Oh, actually, it wasn't French. It's just the the shoppy spelling of century. East Grinstead, England. The mission was to treat injured airmen. Imagine, that guy saw a need. People were being disfigured in war, and now there was a solution, plastic surgery, that could kind of help make them ease their transition back into society. And so he went to solve that problem. He was 2,052 weeks old, or 39.36 years. So that's old enough to know a few things, but young enough to see that the world can be different. The quote of the week, Walter Anderson. This one is just a different retelling. Oh, gosh dang, the vulture has just alighted on a branch. 20 feet away from me. That startled me. I don't know if you heard the branch creaking as he sat down. Gosh, they're beautiful beasts. Anyway, here's the quote of the week, Walter Anderson. Nothing diminishes anxiety faster than action. So, I have always believed this, and I've got a different way of saying it that I invented myself, and my son will tell you. And my son auditioned for a huge role on the biggest stage in our city earlier this year. He practiced a ton. I mean, he practiced so much for the audition. It was, he had to send in a video because we were going out of town. And then, and the lead up to the video, he practiced it so much and did a lot of different takes. And he wasn't really super nervous about the audition. He just did it. It was just a thing he did. And if he got the role, he was going to have to act, sing, and play guitar in front of, somewhere around 7,000 people night after night for a few weeks. He didn't think about that, though, really. He just was thinking about how much he wanted to be in the show, how excited he was about the possibility. And then we found out after we got back in town that he got the role. And that's when the reality set in. And for a few days, usually it was right at bedtime or like as the sun was going down and his cortisol levels were dropping, the anxiety about this filled our home. I mean, literally, it was like another being in our home, the anxiety level about, having to do this thing. And so I told him, I had a conversation with him on the second night of this happening. I was like, look, whenever I'm worried about something and I'm not working on it, well, sorry, I screwed that up. Whenever I'm worried about something, I'm not working on it. And whenever I am working on something, I am not worried about it. Action is the antidote to anxiety. That is what I've always told him. And I learned this when I was first starting to get big commissions and I had to install them. And each installation is very different and you never know what's going to go wrong. And I would lay in bed for days and nights. The days before at night, I would lay in bed thinking about, okay, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? But then the second I started putting the tools together to load the truck up to go do it, I was no longer worried. And the second I was drilling a hole, I wasn't worried about it, right? Action is the antidote to anxiety. And so from that minute that we had that discussion, like every other night after that, whenever he was worried, he just picked up his guitar and started practicing the songs. And it was absolutely amazing. It was a complete turnaround. He began practicing like half of the day. And because of that, instead of sitting around and stewing and worrying, he was actively making himself better. He totally crushed. Oh my gosh. The vultures, I think the vultures might want me. There's 4 of them in that tree now. Sorry. He totally crushed his performance. I mean, we went every single night and it was amazing. And I can't even begin to tell you what it was like to watch him up there. And he swears that he wasn't really that nervous because he was so prepared. Action is the antidote to anxiety. Nothing diminishes anxiety faster than action. And that's true if you think about if there is no action that you can do to diminish the anxiety, then it's something outside of your control and you shouldn't worry about it, right? Like your kid walking to school. Once they're out the door, they're on their own. There's really nothing you can do about it. So stop worrying. Okay, let's see. What did I consume this week? The book Stand Out of Your Light is still in there. Gosh, it's so good. You can get the link to the free PDF in the email. And then I'm also reading the next book of the Magician's trilogy. This is The Magician King. I mean, I love fantasy stories, but this one is so tied to this real world too. And I think it is just a really striking combination of the real world and how sometimes, if you go far enough down the rabbit hole of what it all means, you can be like, well, nothing. There's nothing here. This is nothing. It's such a delightful kind of musing on that plus what a fantasy world is, like Narnia, right? If you could go to Narnia, oh my gosh, it'd be so amazing, but then you'd still just be in a world. I don't know. It's super fascinating. It's kind of like sitting here at the river. Every time I leave the river, I think, all right, we got to buy property down there. It's just so amazing. And I look for a while down, buying property down there. And then I'm just like, well, I mean, it's just if we were to live down there, it would be my same life. Just the river would stop being interesting after a few months, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What I am thinking about this week, okay, I'm thinking about the future, and this is kind of weird, and I want you to bear with me because it might get a little complicated, and it's hard in this is an essay, right? So this needs to be a certain length, and it's hard to get. I feel like this thought is a book that may not have a point and may not be interesting to read, but in order to get at it, you have to lay it out in a book. But I've been thinking a lot about AI and the rise of the potential future where many of us are not needed to be pushing papers around, right? And then people are even talking about 10 years after that, we won't even need plumbers anymore, right? Because that's what you hear when you hear someone invested in tech and AI and someone asks them about all the jobs disappearing. Well, they're like, well, you should learn to be a plumber, right? We're still going to need plumbers. And plumbers is like shorthand for people who do things with their hand, right? The AI can't fix your drain clog yet. But 10 years after that, when the robot automation revolution happens, because that's about how far behind, people like, what is it, Boston Dynamics or whatever, people making robots, mostly robots for war, because that seems to be where we pour all of our money and have innovation. 10 years after you lose your white collar job, the robot plumbers will likely take that job from you too. I think about this a lot. A lot of the podcasts I've been listening to lately, they're talking about this future and what it means. And if you really want to kind of hear a good synopsis of where this thinking came from in my mind, it's that Mo Gadot podcast. He's a former Google executive on Diary of the CEO. It's like from a month ago. So I have a fairly unique path. I graduated with a degree in sculpture, and I never really had a job as an adult. I'm obviously made money, but never, only for like 6 months did I have a corporate job where I went to an office and did a thing each day. And actually what I did was pull sales tax receipts out or reimbursed receipts out for a energy company, make photocopies of them and put them back in the archives in the basement because they were having a sales tax audit. I did that for 6 months all day long with a CD player tucked in my belt and long hair covering my headphones. That's the only time I've ever really had a job. I went out on my own pretty quickly, and I started the studio pretty early, and I've been doing that and other totally self-directed things ever since. And then, I've always been coming up with my own agenda every day. I've always been like, well, what do I need to do today? This. Nobody has ever told me you need to do this today. And things have also gone pretty well for me. And so I guess I feel like I know personally on a day-to-day basis what a future looks like when human labor isn't much needed to drive the economy. Right? I see like what they're all talking about is that like you'll do the things you're interested in and there will just be enough resources around so that if you want to go back to college, you can just do that. You don't have to like be in the rat race all day long. And so I know what that future looks like. I mean, I guess at least I know what it looks like for an individual who has enough resources to survive and also enough resources to invest in the cool things that he wants to spend time doing, because that's what I do each day. I define the work that I want to accomplish and I do that work. And now, of course, I have a bent towards profit because, we aren't in the abundance future yet. And I still do have to make money to provide for my family in the long term, right? But in the short term, the week to week, month to month, year to year is gone. And that's what they're talking about. And it's that phrase, enough resources, that is key, because I've actually been both. I've actually been a person who had enough resources and the time that he wanted to do the things that he wanted to do. But I've also been a person in my early 20s who had enough time but didn't have any resources. And a whole bunch of free time is heaven if you have enough resources, because it's like, what interests me? I'm going to learn all about butterflies. You can do that if that's what you want. It's difficult in our modern culture to fully immerse yourself in that because we're so focused on and attuned to creating surplus value so that we can scrape off some profit so that we can buy groceries and pay rent, right? But if you can do that, it's a spectacular thing to be able to do, to have enough resources and then free time to pursue your interests. But it is hell if you don't have enough resources. Having tons of free time and zero resources is basically what all of this, the dystopian futures, all of the poor people, that's what they're doing all day long. They have no resources and a ton of free time. Building things and learning things and trying things takes time and resources and money. And almost anyone who talks about artificial intelligence talks about how it will take over doing all these jobs that are generating all this income and people will have tons of free time. And it's like, if they're utopian minded, they're like, it's going to be amazing if we can just figure it out. And if they're dystopian or status quo minded, they're like, it's going to be amazing, but we're going to have to figure it out, right? And that figure it out part is everything. It's all of the squishy part of our culture. And the thing is that unfortunately, when they talk about that free time, most of these people, most of the capitalists, because they're all capitalists, because we're all capitalists, who are building these large AI models, when they talk about that free time, they typically mean people will be unemployed. But the thing is that in this future that they're talking about, everyone, this is ubiquitous, and anyone who believes that it's going to happen, they believe that there's plenty of like gross domestic product and enough resources for everyone. They believe that. The problem is for one reason or another, they're just kind of like invested in this current iteration of the status quo. And under this current system, those resources will just be concentrated in a very few, in fact, a smaller and smaller number of people. Because one of the things that happens when you are able to capture resources at a great scale is that you're able to capture more resources and more resources. It's kind of like the way the end of Monopoly goes every time you play. At first, it starts out pretty even. Someone has a few bits of luck. Maybe they make a few smart moves, and suddenly they own all the board pieces, and you can't land anywhere on the board. And so they win the game. And, you know, I'm such a capitalist that it is kind of hard for me to imagine how this future could be. But frankly, like, the only reason that I am such a capitalist, and when I say I'm a capitalist, I mean I believe that it works. I believe in it. But that's because I've always been a hard worker, and I've been pretty lucky a few times, right? I mean, there's a whole bunch of, there's a million permutations of my life where I am just as hard of a worker and maybe even a harder worker, but I have slightly less luck, and I am worried about money right now. And I am worried about AI coming to take my job right now. That could have been my reality. I would imagine if I had been a hard worker and not as lucky as I have been, I might be quite a bit less of a capitalist than I am. I think maybe if there's one thing that's unique about me, it's that I understand that I didn't earn all this. That I worked hard and I deserve it, right? But so do most other people. I just got lucky in a whole bunch of different ways. And we were at back to school night last week, walking around my daughter's college campus like high school with hundreds of other parents. And my wife turned to me and she said, I want to go back to high school. And then we kind of just, as we were walking across the quad, we were talking about how like amazing it would be if adults could go back to high school and like really learn about life sciences and really like, ooh, this is amazing. Let's do, let's run the school radio program for a semester. There's just so much opportunity. The future could be awesome. And the only thing that I see keeping it from being totally awesome is the fear in these, technocrats and this lust for money and power. I just don't understand how it could be anything else other than that lust for money and power. Like, I couldn't possibly not show up in the most expensive Lamborghini to this elite conference on intellectual thinkers. So in order to do that, I have to have a home here in this country too. In order to that, of course, I need these $200 billion. It's just insane. And I'm not sure how this relates to making the most of your 4,000 weeks. Except to say that everything is changing and the future is going to be way different. Even if you don't buy into the full-on, general intelligence, AI will change everything, you still know it's going to be vastly different. Like, I don't know what jobs my teenage kids are going to be able to have. That's how different it's going to be. And so maybe it makes sense to spend a little bit of your finite time this week ensuring that tomorrow or next week or 10 years from now is amazing as opposed to terrifying. Because, like, if you can imagine a world where there are plenty of resources for everyone to thrive, not just for everyone to survive, right? Because it's like we always talk about the subsistence level of resources. But if you really want a spectacular level of human actualization, then you need to give people the free time and the resources to pursue their interests. And that is not universal basic income level, because universal basic income level in every science fiction book that I've ever read, which, let's be honest, science fiction books have done a pretty awesome job of predicting the future we're currently living in, so we should give them a little bit of credit going forward. The UBI, the universal basic income, is always a recipe for squalor and a human hellscape. But it could be awesome. And we just need to have a little bit less scarcity mindset and figure out a way to, frankly, distribute the gains a little bit. I know that that's like third rail-y, but if you are a person of wealth, you know how easy it is to create more wealth with your wealth. And you also know that your life was pretty good 10 years ago when you had half or less as much wealth as you have now. So, I don't know. I just feel like the only thing stopping the future from being a utopia is our feeble little human fears. And if we can just get over those, it might be amazing. That's it. Oh, gosh, it didn't even lead with the dad joke of the week set up this week. I'm just all discombobulated. Let me give you the dad joke of the week. I'm going to give you a 5-second count to guess it, and then I'm going to tell you. What did one wall say to the other? I'll meet you at the corner. Okay, that's it for this week. I will post a picture of what this river looks like next week, so you can get an idea of, or maybe I'll do it this week. Maybe I'll do it in this week's email. I think I can still edit that before it goes out tonight. We'll see. Sometime soon, you'll be able to see what I'm looking at right now. It's pretty spectacular. Have a great week. I hope you're having a really enjoyable time with people that you love and people that love you. And think about how awesome it could be if we would all get over our deep-seated fear of scarcity and lean into what actually is an incredible amount of abundance. As Mo Gadot said, we live in the age of more. All right, have a great week.